Hello, it's me. Okay, question for you. Raise your hand if you've ever had feelings of unworthiness, if you've ever felt like a loser, if you've experienced imposter syndrome, if you feel you suffer from low self-esteem at times, or if you ever have. Raise your hand if you've felt any of those things. Okay, so you're in the right place, because today we are going to forget all about those feelings and you're going to move forward and leave all that behind. I know. Hi, my name's Christine L. Conroy. Welcome to Happy Stuff and Fluff, a channel for women who are getting happy, living longer and growing younger. And yes, this is a subject dear to my heart because lots of the women I come across tell me that they have these feelings or they've experienced these feelings. Now, a caveat, if your self-worth is so low that it's crippling you, then you can get expert help, and I suggest you would seek out relevant therapy. For the rest of us who feel these things only perhaps slightly, but enough to hold us back or to stop us from showing up in the world the way we want to, this is for you. And yes, you can stop worrying about your self-worth and self-esteem because today I'm offering an alternative. First of all, I just need to set a few things straight, because a question I often get asked is self-confidence and self-esteem the same thing? And no, they're not. Let's just have a quick look then. Self-confidence, quite simply put, and I am simplifying a lot of these definitions, please excuse me for that, because some of them can get quite deeply psychological, but we're talking here about this. Self-confidence is the extent to which you trust in your own ability to do something, or in your ability to deal with life's challenges, shall we say. Now, this varies. You can be confident in one area of your life and not in another, and your confidence levels might change depending on the season you're in or what's happening to you at the moment. But, if there's an area of life you're not confident in, that can be remedied by practice and by repetition so that you build confidence to be able to do it. So that's the extent to which you trust your own ability to do something. Self-esteem then is, simply put, how you think and feel about yourself. Is self-worth the same thing? Well, self-worth is how you view your value as a human being. Dr. Christina Hibbert, who's a clinical psychologist, explains this difference this way. She says that self-esteem is what we think and feel and believe about ourselves. Self-worth is recognizing that I am greater than those things. It's a deep knowing that I am of value, that I am lovable, that I am necessary to this life, and of incomprehensible worth. I'm going to use self-esteem and self-worth to mean the same thing. So when I talk about self-esteem, I'm including self-worth within that. Now, before we go on, let me tell you, I know that you are worthy. I know that you are a winner. How do I know that without ever having met you? Well, okay, let's say if you believe in God, for example, then you also believe that you are a child of God. So how can you possibly be unworthy? That's the first thing. And something I used to show to my students who suffered unbelievably with this thing of low self-worth or feeling like a loser for whatever reason, I used to show them this. Look at this. Out of 300 million sperm, guess who fertilized the egg to be born? You did. It was you. Out of all of those sperm, you fertilized the egg. You were born. You deserve to be on this planet, and you are worthy for that alone. And you're certainly a winner. Oh, I think it's excellent, that. But seriously, if you feel you have low self-esteem, it's going to manifest in your behaviour in all kinds of negative ways. I mean, these are just some of them. You might have feelings of hate and anger towards yourself. You might be overly sensitive about things. You probably feel anxious and fearful all the time. You may be a people pleaser looking for external validation, never saying no to someone or wanting to please people all the time so that they will like you, and then that will make you feel validated. Excuse me. You might be obsessed with being perfect. Now, I know more than one client, friends, who have this compunction. Whatever they do needs to be perfect. It has to be perfect. And this is because anything less makes them feel not good enough. So there's that. And then there's the feeling the need to prove yourself to other people. I'll tell you a story here. I think this is probably more a need to prove to myself, perhaps. Not sure. But anyway, from an academic point of view, I went to a grammar school. I was bright. But I left grammar school. There was never any question that I'd be going on to university. I had to go out to earn money. And so I would go for interviews for jobs. And one person actually said to me in this tone, "You mean you went to a grammar school and you left with only one O-level, GCSE, whatever we call it these days? You took someone else's place in a grammar school, wasted your education and came out with one O-level." Now, he actually said that to me. He didn't know what was going on in my life. He didn't know what was happening in my home at the time. But that's what he said, and it's stuck with me. And so I went on a little bit later, I would say, from being about 21. I read everything I could get my hands on all kinds of things. And I took professional development courses all over the place. And when I got the opportunity to actually go to do a degree at university, I didn't want just a degree. I wanted a first-class degree. Now, it meant so much to me. I got my first-class degree, and I thought that was going to be I've proved that I'm not stupid. I've proved this. I've proved that I can do this. I have a first-class degree. Did it help me in that sense? No, it didn't. Not really. I knew all along I wasn't stupid. I didn't need a first-class degree to tell me that. But I was a little bit mixed up. Long story short, I then went on to do a postgraduate certificate simply because I wanted to be qualified to teach in higher education. So that's what I did. And the next step, and people were encouraging me, was, of course, to do a master's degree. And when I thought about it, I didn't really feel the need. I didn't feel the need to do it to prove to me that I could do it. I didn't need it from a professional point of view. And so those feelings of, I suppose, not being good enough or needing to prove myself just dissipated. And that's just one area from an academic point of view. If you've ever felt not good enough, certainly that was me. So all of the things that I'm talking about here, being anxious and fearful, being obsessed with being perfect, being a people pleaser, it's exhausting. And all of these things could be caused by feelings of low self-worth. Now, what actually causes these feelings in the first place? Massive subject. It could be for all kinds of reasons. Incidentally, before I tell you, if you're enjoying this video, please hit that like button. Hit the like button, and while you're down there, please subscribe if you haven't done already. It really helps, and I would appreciate it so much. Okay, so what causes it? Well, the first thing I'm going to say, upbringing. It's your upbringing. anything could have happened, something could have happened. That one thing where that person said this to me stuck in my mind. But my father, there's a whole psychological theory about fathers and their daughters and the relationship between them. And according to that theory, I should be incapable of even leaving the house. My relationship with my father was so bad. But upbringing, so all kinds of things could happen in your upbringing. The way your parents may have said just one thing, even if you came from a loving background, just one thing can stick in your mind, as I've just demonstrated. Abuse, of course, if you suffered from any abuse whatsoever, that tends to leave you with feelings of low self-worth. Why did this happen to me? Am I such a bad person that someone would treat me in that way? Those kind of feelings. Your appearance, for some reason, if you're overweight, if you're underweight, can cause that. Social comparison is a big one. Upward comparison and downward comparison. We do this as human beings to kind of try and identify where we are in society, by looking at people who are worse off than us and who are better. A little bit of that, I suppose, is, as I say, it comes natural to us, but it's if you look down on people because they haven't yet achieved what you have. And the other way, you can that can make you feel better about yourself. Oh, I'm further along than that, so I feel a bit better about that. And then you might look upwards to someone who's doing better than you, and that might motivate you to try harder to achieve. On the flip side of that might make you feel envious, bitter, and resentful. Obviously, social media is causing all kinds of comparisons that are having negative effects on us. Appearance is a big thing, what size you are, someone who's better looking, all of those things. Income, if someone's earning more than you are and you feel you're not as far along as you should be, comparing your careers as someone got ahead quicker than you, all of those things. I mean, heck, in terms of social media, if someone has more likes on a post, it can get you down. So social comparison is a big thing. We could do a whole video on that. But also depression. If you're feeling down for any reason, then it can affect your self-esteem and self-worth. Lack of connection, which we'll talk about in a second. As I've said to you, if any of these things that cause your self-worth to be so low that it's crippling, you can get expert help. And, there are a gazillion books out there about boosting your self-esteem. I'm not going to poo-poo them all. Some of them have excellent suggestions. I'll link to some good ones down below. And equally, if you've ever read a book that's helped you in this way, please leave it in the comments box below to help the rest of us. So, but talking about boosting self-esteem, what I want to offer you today is an alternative. It's more like an overall suggestion about how to go about living your life differently, shall we say, with something else in mind. So this idea comes from a scientific theory defined by two psychologists in the 1980s, Edward L. Deci, I'm not quite sure, I'll call him Deci, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, and Richard M. Ryan. Now, these psychologists proposed that human beings have 3 psychological needs, and fulfilling these needs creates well-being, personal growth, and optimal functioning. It's called self-determination theory. I call it C.A.R theory. It sounds less, I think self-determination sounds a little bit dry, doesn't it? Well, I call it the C.A.R theory. And it's about these 3 things. These are the 3 human needs. One is competence, so achievements, things that you've achieved, knowledge and skills, developing mastery over tasks that are important to you. Increase effectiveness in dealing with your environment, or increasing effectiveness. So achievements, we're not talking about We're not talking about, building a rocket to go to the moon. We're not talking about saving the world. We're talking about achievements, small achievements that are important to you. Building your knowledge and skills. So learning, lifelong learning, and developing mastery over those things that are important to you. Now, you don't have to go out learning things. It could be keeping your house clean, making sure your house is a certain way, and when you achieve that, that's important to you, and it's increasing your effectiveness in dealing with your environment. It has to be small. It can be small, is what I'm saying. So being able to do that. And then we have autonomy, which is feeling that you're in control of your own life, that you have some control, that you're masters of your own destiny, or at least have some control. And particularly that you feel in control of your own behaviour. And I would say understand that you do have choices. Again, going back to students who felt that they had no control whatsoever, that their future was determined, that they went to school, they had to do A-levels, then they had to go on to university because their parents wanted that and that's what everyone else was doing. And they had to do a subject that they had a good chance of getting a job at the end, and then the lecturers would be telling them what to do. There were rules, do this, don't do that, and so on. A lot of them felt completely out of control. Now, you have to understand that you do have choices, always. Now, as I well know, sometimes that choice may be between a rock and a hard place. Nevertheless, you have choice, and that's important. I'm going to do a video on it at some point in the future. So that's autonomy. And then relatedness or connection. As I've mentioned already, you need to have a sense of belonging, they say, and at least one close, affectionate relationship with others. Now, I'm not talking necessarily about romantic relationships here. I'm talking about maybe having an affectionate I have an affectionate relationship with my post lady. She comes, she's pleasant, we chat, I like her, she delivers my post, and off she goes. That's a shot of a connection with someone who obviously is a post lady who I might see 2 or 3 times a week. But it's having those points of connection. It's not about having lots of friends. It's maybe having a small group of friends, but with whom you have meaningful relationships. So it's those 3 things. Now, this capacity that we have as human beings to kind of reflect on ourselves as objects of our own attention is useful to us, but perhaps by becoming too obsessed about ourselves and our feelings, we focus too much on the negative, always thinking about what's wrong with us and what needs to be fixed. Raise your hand if you agree with that. So now I have 2 suggestions for you. If instead of focusing on, what's wrong with you and your low self-worth and so on, if instead you were to take action on these 3 things that we've talked about, making small steps daily to fulfill these 3 needs. As Desi and Ryan suggest, your self-worth, self-esteem, and self-confidence will simply develop as a consequence, automatically, without you having to keep thinking, I'm such a bad person and I'm not worthy and, I can't, or let's just put that to one side. We're not denying it, let's put it to one side, but let's start building our efforts to fulfill these 3 needs and see what happens. And the second suggestion is, if you haven't already done this, please take the VIA strengths test. This is a personality test, if you like, that no, it will not tell you what's wrong with you. Quite the opposite. If I said to you, tell me 5 things that you think are wrong with you, you'll write them down in a heartbeat. Now, if I said, tell me 5 things that are right with you, it's going to take a lot longer. I know this, I've done it so many times with groups who sit after number 3 thinking, what else is good about me? Okay, well, this test, the VIA strength, focuses on your strengths and what's good about you and your personality. It gives you language to be able to talk about yourself and your strengths, but also if you combine using your strengths, or let's say the top 5 strengths, you get a whole list of strengths, and the top 5 ones, if you use those top 5 in combination with building your competence, your autonomy, and your relatedness, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing for you. Please tell me what you think about this. I'd be very interested to know. Okay, that's it for today. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember that on the Happy Stop and Flub, we're getting happy, living longer and growing younger. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.